Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. Today I thought I would go over how I research items. I've had quite a few questions, especially on postcards, but the way I'm going to show you what I research and how I research on eBay, you can do for any item you can find. It works any way you want. It can be used for any item. It doesn't have to be postcards. I use the same thing for records or any other item I'm looking up. We're going to pop over and I'm going to show you a postcard, and we're going to start with this postcard here. Again, this is what I do for everything. Whatever it is, whether it's a record, a book, a piece of clothing, whatever the case may be, this is how I'm going to research it. I know that postcards, they're in the collectibles category, so we're going to literally type in, again, it's a Passaic, New Jersey postcard. We're just going to look this up this way. For postcards, I put in a keyword, postcard actually to start with, and then that way it helps me to narrow it down. So once I get into here, then I'm going to pick the actual category that says postcards. And then I'm going to delete postcard up here because a lot of people don't actually put the word postcard in their description. It's in the area, so that can always change. But we're going to put in Passaic in the postcard field, and then we're going to click search. And then what we want to do is we see there's 383 Passaic postcards. We're going to search highest first. And then you can see some cards right off the bat, $100, $90, $90. Most things that are rides, like this one here from Fairyland or from Coney Island, any of this kind of stuff that's related to an attraction always sells. Even newer cards sell, depending on what it is. This is an auto dealer. It's something odd. It's got the name of it. Those usually sell local descriptive cards. We have a Main Street, a bird's eye view, so I don't see anything off the bat now. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in bird, or bird's eye, or birds, one of the words, and then we're going to go from there. So now we're closer to what we want. So here's the only bird's eye view that's up, and it's sold directly on a buy it now. There's no real way to tell how quickly it's sold, but I would say it's probably sold fairly quickly. So again, the card we have is another bird's eye view. It's not the same bird's eye view, but it is close. So we know this one's probably worth at least something. The condition-wise, this is a used card as well, just as ours is. Ours is actually very early. This one has 1919. This card here, let's flip to the back so you can see it's in 1906. So this card was probably made in 1898 through the 1906 era. There's no line running vertical through the card telling you where to put the address versus the note. So this card is before 1907 no matter what, more than likely. But again, this one was made in 1906. For like the title on this one, I would probably put 1898 through 1906 postcard. This one here, the one that we have, I'm going to say, maybe it's $27. It's hard to say. But I will put $27.50 on it based on the fact that this one sold. I had to buy it now. This one could have sold right here. The New Jersey 1919 card could have sold for $20, $30. There's no way to know at this point because the person put too low of a price on it. So I'm going to put on my card, on this card here, as I said, I'm going to put $27.50 on it, and we'll go from there. I bet you I'll probably sell this for $15 or somewhere in that range, at least 10. It's an early one. It's got factories, and in fact, I'd probably put factory in the title. But let's pick another one, and let's see what else we can research for you. Let's pick another one. Let's just pick some random one out of this group here. Let's see. Here's an interesting looking one. Let me pull the card out so I know what it is. This is the Bowery. This is an early New York image. I don't know if anybody remembers the Bowery Boys, but that was a TV show. Well, there was actually movies back in the 60s or so. This is also a circa 1898 card to 1907, undivided back, unused. It's an early German one. Let's go back to the front again. Let's type in, let's go back to the screen. Let's type in Bowery and New York. And we can change this in just a second, and I will show you. So now we're in the Bowery, New York section. What I would probably do is go to actually New York, pick the New York spot, and then I'm going to delete New York out of the search results. And sometimes in many categories, if you take out the title or the area specific, like a postcard, you'll get much more items to look through, but not in this case, it looks like. Here's that's a real photo, 25, let's see here. And this card may not be worth anything. This is how you know. This is pretty much the same or similar image. That's 1908. That's a real picture, so that would be worth a little more, I would say. But here's one. This one looks to be the same. Let's see if the building in the background is the same. This one's pretty close. Our card's probably the same era, but let's see what else we got. Are any of these selling? Let's see here. Here's another one that's similar. This one actually sold. Let's take a quick look at this one here. Again, let's flip you back to what we're looking at. This is the card that I have. And we opened it up in another window here so we can look a little better at it. Let's see here. Got to get to the right spot to see the photo. Nope, not quite the same image. It's still very similar. Again, it looks like it's the same scene. Yeah, it's the same scene, it looks like. You can see the billboard in the back on the left, the flags there. So yeah, so this card's a real early card, I would say, too. This isn't the same ballpark as the card that we have. It has similar action and scenery in it. That one's a little more cluttered than ours. But still, it's an early card. It's unused, which really helps in my book. Unused cards from this era are very hard to come by for the most part in some areas. So we're going to say this card here, too, the Bowery card, is probably going to be in the $10 range. So I'll probably do a $12 or $14.50, put that it's early and unused, and it probably will have some movement. Here's another one. Here's another Bowery, same era, same general everything. $9.09, free shipping though. But I charge shipping, but I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to put $14.50 on that one based on what I see. There's some that aren't selling. I'm going to zoom in on some of the signs in mine, and we'll see what happens. Here's another one from the same era, the Bowery, $7.99. So for what I see, probably half have sold. Maybe not quite half after looking at a few more, but it's got a high potential for making $10. So I don't see the same one. Here's another early one. Yeah, we're just going to put $14.50 on it, and we're going to move on with that. If it doesn't sell right away, no big deal. But everyone who has a photo or has their photos up here, the ones that I do see, no one's really zoomed in. Here's one that's a zoom in a little better, but he's still got the whole postcard. I don't really see many that are zoomed in. This one's just might have a zoom in here. This one doesn't look too bad here, too. But let's go on to another card here. Let's just randomly pick another one, too. So let's just look up for a different item here. Let's pick this one here. This one's looks like a train depot station, Dunsback Ferry. Okay, so let's type in Dunsback Ferry. So let's type in let's see, how do you spell that? Dunsback Ferry. And let's see what we got in this postcard here. This is usually pretty good. Dunsback Ferry. I don't see anything here at all, so there are no cards from Dunsback Ferry. Let's see if it's even still a city. Let's look up over here. Sometimes on these postcards, things that were a city back in the day may not be a city anymore. Is a hamlet of the town of Kalani. Let's look up this word and let's see what we get this way. It's a hamlet, so it's a little area. At the time, it may have been its own city. Let's look up, see where we got. Let's look up U.S. states, and because it looks like there's some German, Amish. Let's hit in New York. Let's get at this a little closer. Now we're down to just New York for this, and again, we're only using one word to search this. The fewer the words, the better, in my opinion. That's how I search pretty much everything. Here, it looks like it's going to be a pretty good card. It's a real, let's see here, it's a real nice image. It's early. It's a station or depot. I'm guessing I'm probably going to, let's do this. Let's look up depot, and I'm going to show you how many depot cards are selling. Here's a depot here. This is average. Some of the higher price cards are depots for the most part. This is a Greyhound Station depot. It went for $152. This is one card. And this is not even a good card because it's actually got, well, it's got a white strip there, so it could have been a little better image. Could be the person's actual image. Now, for me, I would have zoomed in and taken a real nice close-up of that person standing right there on the deck area of the depot, and I think that would have helped sell it. Let's see here. Let's go down and look here. Let's see some more depots. This is comparable to the one we have right here. Let's go take a quick look at it. This is a small area, Flushing, Queens, Long Island. Very specific place in that area. Let's close off some of these windows. And let's take a look and see if it's the similar era. Let's see here. We're going to have to click on it. So not helping us here with the photos they have, but we'll get it here in just a second. Yeah, it's a similar era. It's a similar part. Has similar features. It's from New York as well. And this one went for $79. This one here, this card here, then might be something that you might want to put up on auction. Maybe something you'd put up for $29.99 starting bid. This is what I would probably do, and then go from there. Or you could just put $95 on it, opening on a buy it now, make an offer, and then just go from there. It's kind of hard to tell what it would actually go for when you do that, but it's in the ballpark range. You have to range them by comparable cards, and again, there's nothing from that area. Not one single card on all of eBay. But again, there's no comparable card to the card that we have. That's what happens a lot of the time. And this happens in records. This happens in all kinds of areas. But you can see the depot cards, for the most part, are all selling. They're all going fairly well. So those are my options on this one. Put it up for like $29.99 starting bid, take what I can get, or put it up for $95 and take whatever. My option on this one, I would say, would be to take, let me get back over there so we can look at it one more time. I would take $95 opening starting bid on a buy it now, and then I would take whatever offer I felt comfortable with. That would be my move. That would be a quick seller that way. You wouldn't have to wait for it to sell on a 7 or 10 day listing. If I listed it on an auction, I would list it for 10 days, as much as I can list it for. I have 2,000 of those to play with for free each month, so I would just do it that way if I was going to run it that way. But I honestly feel that this one would be a quick mover. It might go for a high dollar if I just put it up at a buy it now option with make an offer for $95. Again, this is how I would do it for anything. Whatever I'm looking for, I'm going to use the least amount of words to track it down. And whatever the item is, if this is a postcard, I don't want what it is in the title. That can narrow it down a lot. Let's just look up for just a random item. I tell everybody to look up real picture postcards first. If you're going to search up that search and want to know what to look for when you go to a store, look up RPPC first, and let's click search, and you'll see how many of these are actually up and how many sold for high dollars. First one out the door, you see they're $500 cards. Not odd, not weird to see $500 cards. We're only in New York too, mind you. This is just New York. We're going to remove New York in a minute here, but you can kind of see real picture postcards always sell. They always sell very well, depending on the image. There's some more common cards, obviously, but for the most part, decent oddball images of real picture postcards always sell. So here's a real nice one, Kodak City. It's a float. And again, $500. This is just New York again. $215, $180 for a few cards, 18 cards. $152 here, $152 again, the one we already looked at, the Greyhound Station card. Another $150 card. It's a station again, or depot. You can put either one in the title. Obviously, these are all real picture postcards only. So let's see here. You can see the prices. They are hundreds of dollars for many of these cards. Let's do one more thing. Let's just do New York, just NY. Let's just see what comes up. We have 118,000 in the New York postcard. And that's with NY in there. Let's pick out let's pick out a different category. Let's just go to postcards and let's search this real quick for just New York. 170,000 cards from New York. There's a few items that obviously aren't postcards. Somebody made an error. There's a painting. Yeah, this just shows you everybody doesn't list properly every time. Motorcycle even in there. But let's go back now that we're here and let's just look for real picture postcards in all of the postcard category. And again, this is a huge lot. You can buy postcards this way too. There's no way to know if it was picked through though when you buy them this way. That's one issue with buying offline. But Sometimes it works. Sometimes you get a horrendous amount. Sometimes you get some real nice ones. Here's a specific. Here's one card, $810. It's a real picture again. It's a tattooed lady. Nothing particularly special about it, other than it's probably like a performer or someone with a lot of tattoos from that time. That's what makes it worth some money. Oddball things, again, I say California always goes. Here's a California early card, $747, just for a single postcard. Let's see here, Santa Fe, another Depot. As I said, depots always sell. You can see some books of them go for a ton of money too. Lots online. Popcorn vendor, $609. I'm going to pass by this one. That's a lynching. I really don't like to sell that kind of material, but they do sell very well, but that's not my cup of tea, so we're going to pass that by. Here's one that I've had several of this type. It's a trick photography. It's the same person, multi-image exposed photo. Now these I've had, I don't know, half a dozen or more of these. These show up of all kinds of people. They always sell for, say, $50 to $534. They're all real picture postcards, nice early things. Let's see here. Baseball ones, as I've said. Let's go up and type in baseball so you can get a kind of a gist on that. Let's look at here one more. Portland Mist. Here's a nice early one. Teens, real picture postcard. It's a street scene. That's what usually sells cards. Early street scenes, everyday life. But what we're going to look up California. Let's just put see it. Oops. Let's get that S out. Whatever you type in, though, you're going to find something in that category. But let's type in CA. Here's another California. Let's go to the states, and let's just go to California. Again, you can see prices, $500. This is a new one here. This is from the 50s. Anything from Lake Tahoe sells. I've had a few Lake Tahoe cards I've sold in the $100 and $150 range. These all look like fairly nice. Not super early, but they're all scarce cards. Colorado. Let's go back and just pick California for a second here. And let's put in, just type in Maine. Oops, we can spell it right. My fat fingers there. Let's do Maine. And this is Main Street cards. Main Street cards in general sell. And again, you can see quite a few here selling right off the bat. These are just random cards. How they sold, how they were listed. Blythe. Again, it depends. I've got some from Blythe too, but this one's a fairly interesting photo. Here's one where I feel he could have reversed the photos. His first photo is of just the entire card. He should have zoomed in here and shown this as his main photo. I think that would have helped play the card better and it would have sold better. But you can see California sells fairly well. You have to really look at the city. So if you had a specific city or something you were looking for, you can see. But let's look at some other items here while we're doing this. We're going to do an search. Let's go back to the main page. Actually, let's go to advanced is what I meant to do. Let's go to advanced. Let's do completed. Let's do records. Let me show you some music here. Records sell extremely well, as I said. For me, we're going to do 78 just to get us somewhere. Okay, we're going to go here, and then we're going to click on the records category. We can narrow this down in a minute here, but there's 90,000 it says under 78s. Let's put rare in the title. And let's look this way for just a second. 200 and some odd thousand. Let's change the search criteria and let's search by highest first. And these are just ones that people have said were rare. Doesn't mean they're really rare. This is just what they've said. Let's look down here for a minute. You can see some of the asking prices, $70,000 for a Rolling Stones. There are some that sell that high. A lot of people pass on classical. This is another area that I see. This is a set of classical records. Nothing big, something that most, probably 95% of the people I know would just walk right by, not paying any attention to. Now, I always look. Early cello and Bach sells. I'm shocked at $16,000, but you'll see there's tons of records, high-dollar records that sell for a ton of money. Let's go back down here. Here's Beatles. This is the Butcher cover everybody talks about. I've had one. It wasn't in good condition. It was like a third or fourth state. I didn't get much money, maybe $125 out of it. So it all depends. You have to have the right version of it with the right record, the right everything. But this is a good example here, $9,000. It just depends. Another classical up here. Let me slide back up. Another classical. It's French again. That's why I look for the French. I look for the imports. Those usually go. Paith is an extremely good brand. Paith, P-A-T-H-E, made in France. All imports. You can see there's some 45s that went for 6,000. Here's another classical, or this looks like it's actually probably Hungarian. Something along that line. More classical. Let's see, Unesco. This is a 78 set. Nothing fancy. It's Remington. It's a cheap label. But again, you can see it's sold. And it went from Romania, so somebody spent some good money to ship it out. Let's see here. We're going into the 45s rare, but let's get out of that then again. Let's go back and just put, let's just put 10 inch in. Let's try that. You're trying to look for what you want with the least amount of descriptives, because it kind of narrows you down a lot when you don't want to be that narrow on it. Another French one, 3,000. Sun Ra, if you're not familiar, Sun Ra is a very scarce oddball jazz creator, $3,000. I've seen some of Sun Ra for $10,000, $20,000. It just depends. These are 10 inch. These are not 78s. This is a 10 inch LP, the originals. Here's another 10 inch LP, the Midnighters. A lot of soul and R&B of that era goes for $10,000 or more. You can see a ton. Let's type in Beatles here for a second and let's look up. Again, this is what I do for everything. If I've got a Beatles 45, I'm going to type in Beatles. I'm going to type in, let's say, 45, and I know the label. Let's say it's a VJ. You can type it in however you want. VJ is a common Beatle label. Let's take off the 45, though, on this one here, because it's narrowed us down. You can kind of see a $1,700, $1,800 record. But let's take off this, because Beatles have VJ LPs and the whole works, and this might give us a little better. It's increased the amount right there, you can see. But let's slide down and look. 18, almost 1,800 here. VJ, the Beatles, Thank You Girl, promotional. White labels are almost always promo. This one went for 1,000. Let's see here. Like this one here, I've had this one. To tell if it's real, a lot of the fakes, you can see a shadow of George right here. If that's not there, that's a fake, just to FYI. Again, I see this is like the most bootlegged record there is in the world, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But, here's a good example here, too, of what I do. Here's a person who has done literally what I do. He's went ahead and he's only listed very scarce, only a couple things for the listing, and it's way up at the top. It's sold on a buy it now at his price, it looks like. There's no cross out. But again, he limited the information. That does help. That helps in many categories. I do it in records as well, too. Everybody knows that there's Beatles that are worth a ton of money, and by not listing it, he probably had way more views than everybody else, because everybody who collects Beatles is going to need to look at that record. You can't make it out. He doesn't have a zoom in on the picture, which sometimes we'll do too, just to make people look at the listing. But that's a good example on why less information is good. A real good example. He's somebody who would list as I would. You can see some more quick Beatles lists here. You don't necessarily, he didn't have to list all this detail in it, but it did help him. This one looks like it's a resell. Oh, no, it is different. From me to you, same song on the first side, but that's very common. Let's look down a little more. Introducing the Beatles, VJ dated, double label error, private listing. This one's probably for some specific person, so we won't count that. But even records for LPs in the Beatles category, even if it's an LP and it doesn't have the cover, it will sell. It will always sell. Again, shadow there, it's a real one. Let's give you an example here. Let's see if this one here. Here's a record that I see and I've had 6 or 7 copies of. Eileen Woods. Before I hit search, Eileen Woods is someone you should probably know a little bit about if you're ever going to be into records. Eileen Woods is actually Cinderella's voice from Walt Disney. But what she is known for in the record world is a very rare jazz, vocal jazz record she has. Now, I've had this one, as I said, quite a few times. I see it here locally. I've had it without the sleeve, and I've still received, $200-300 for it. But here you can see this is extremely rare. This is probably about price range I got for the last one. It's a Jubilee. It was pressed here locally. That's why I've seen many of them. And this is actually a remake of it here. This one you see here. It's 180 gram. That's a Japanese pressed one. And even the remakes sell fairly decent. Anything that's been remade usually is a scarce record for the original. But again, Eileen Woods, this is just out of the ballpark I can show you. But this is just an oddball thing. You have to know what's around in your area. What you want to do if you're from and you want to sell records and you want to research some, whatever city you're in, type in record factory, your record label, and then your city name or your state name. You want to do this no matter where you live for records, if you're going to look for records. And you're going to see local companies that made records, and then you're going to type that in and search for those specifically. Okay, so let's look for Jubilee. That's the local label here. They came out of Detroit. There was actually a place, I believe, in Cincinnati that made them as well, too. And let's look up and see. Like, here's a perfect example. This is a record that I've found as well myself. The Oreos. Tell Me So. And I did this for this. I researched what records would show up locally here. There's 10, 15 record labels that I can find locally. There's probably more than that, just here in the Ohio area without going to Detroit. And I found, I don't know how many of this actual record here, just by looking for this label. Looking through ads, looking through posties. And it's something you're going to find locally. And they sell very well. Hold Me, Thrill Me, I've had this one as well too. And it just depends. You need to look for local. You can also look up here. And again, here Jubilee will have that in there too, Eileen Woods. But let's look up Ohio, just Ohio in the records section. That's where I'm at right now. And you're going to see some high dollar Ohio ones, I'm sure, too. Let's see here. Here's a Soul Funk Ohio, 1700, Jerry Blackshear. It just kind of shows you a little bit, just in one quick show. Royal Notes, here's another Ohio, Spitfire. Here's a click label, Ohio Rockabilly. And this is going to help you in many ways. Once you've figured out, the labels to look for, every time you see that label locally, that's what you want to snap up on. You may not know the artist, but these are small-time, records where almost anything on the label is worth something. But this kind of gives you another idea. I've seen all of these labels here locally, and I've searched them all. I've found them all. And again, it doesn't have to be specific type of music for me to collect or buy it to resell. Here's a Right label. It's listed as Ohio. I can't say specifically, but it is one that was made by some Ohio labels. I've had Oblivion. Here's another one. Very good. This is AOR. It's a rock. It's an Ohio private press. Madness, another one, Ohio private press. And again, this is just what we see here locally. These are things that you need to know. You need to know that it's a local label or that it's a small town label. Fly By Night, I've had this same one before. Again, these are what I look for. This is how I search items. But anything can be searched this way. But again, with whatever you're looking for, whatever item you want to find, use as little information as you can find to find that item. So let's say I have an Ohio 45. I'm going to try looking this way. It doesn't always work because when you put 45 in there, sometimes the people do not put that in the title. That's another thing you have to think about. What would they have listed in the title? Some would never even put the word 45. Some may use 7-inch. Some may not use that at all because they're listing it in the category in the specific section of that. But this is literally how I would search for items. You can see Ohio has a lot of 45s that are worth a lot of money. These all show up. It doesn't really necessarily matter what type of music it is, but they all sell. A large chunk of them. It helps to know the labels wherever you're at. If you're from, let's say you're from, let's just pick New York, NY record, NY45. You're going to have the same issue. You're going to see specifically records that would show up in New York. Right here. Most every one of these is probably from a New York pressed or a New York group. Every one of them. All things that would show up in your local area. Something that you need to be able to do is search this way. And know the labels. Some labels like Lawn, you might see it in Ohio because there's a factory in Ohio too. But it just depends. But you can kind of see a lot of stuff here. But let's look up the key category. I sell soul records. That's one area I always sell in. And I'm just going to give you a quick look at what's available. 197,000, almost 200,000 soul records have sold or ended. Some very high, as you can see. Some that don't look like much, but they're high dollar one. Arctic label, here's a good one. She's wanted. Larry Clinton, that's a good one. Let's do something else here on this. Let's go over here and just pick sold ones. We're going to go back to records, sold. Let's just pick out, same everything, but pick out sold. When you're looking for anything, you need to know how many of the item were actually up and listed, which is almost 200,000. And then we're going to look at here, which almost half of those records sold. So we've got, a sell-through rate that's very good. But again, these are ones that are probably searched through and they've only listed, the better records. But you can see sold records, 45s, this is the area I sell in, sell extremely well, extremely high. Almost every one of these records I've had the same label. You can buy group records off eBay too. The shipping usually is what kills you. They usually pick up only. It just depends. Let's see here, anything oddball that stands out. Again, a lot of these are harder to get labels. They're scarce. Mala, though, or Mela, this is a more common label, but there are some records that are extremely high dollar in that label. But you can just see this is a category you would want to learn. I mean, you can type in clothing and jackets, and you're not going to get this many high dollar records right off the bat. Like this one here, I've had two of these. This one, this is someone from local. The Tower label, there used to be Tower Records. They used to have record stores all the way up into the 80s. They pressed their own records. This is a good example. I found two of this record. I didn't get this high because of the condition, but, it's a $1,000 record any day of the week. I could, point out record after record that we have had, but I've done the research this way. On another video, I'll show you some other sites you can use to research records that aren't on eBay. But for records on eBay, this is the basics of it. And if you're like wanting to learn about collectibles or wanting to learn about selling postcards, this is the exact way you need to do it. You need to do these searches, and you need to spend a lot of time researching what you're looking for to see what's the best bet. But again, this is what you need to do. You need to spend your time searching. You need to figure out what works best for you, what title searches you want to do that are going to give you the best results. Don't just search sold auctions. That's only going to cherry pick what's sold or what's ended. It's only going to show you the few ones that sold. Let's say we search for a record and there's 200 copies on eBay that were up that didn't sell and only 2 that sold. The chances of you selling your copy are going to be very slim. 200 didn't sell, so you've got, 1 in 100 sold. You've got 99% of them did not sell. So you can't just look for the sold ones. That's just not going to work. And that's one reason why I don't use like WorthPoint or most of the other sites like that. There is one site I do use Passaic for records, but with records there's so many records that are one-offs or so scarce that one doesn't show up for 5-6 years that would be something you would need to do. I know that you can say the same thing for other items in WorthPoint, but there's very few scarce items on eBay these days. Scarce items meaning something with less than 50 or so of the items. Rare items less than 10. People throw those words around all the time. I don't try to use them for anything unless I know for sure that it's like a $2,000 record or a $10,000 record. Those are going to be scarce. But hopefully you get at least some idea on how I research some items, how I decide on prices. I'll do some more in-depth research on how to find items in the near future here too. But that's just a basic overall what I do to look up something. You have a good idea on the postcards. But anything you do, you have to look up. If you're not spending the time and you're just randomly going to a store and picking up a bunch of postcards, you're going to lose. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to make much money doing that. You have to have some sense on what is valuable, what is worth buying, what sells and what doesn't sell. But again, Don, the Auction Professor, hope you learned at least something. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and tell a friend. Have a good day.